Alrighty, hello everybody, this is Kirosho here. Now, wherever we last left off, Deku, Toru, and Toga, they have just gotten a message, or possibly even an invitation, from the Brotherhood of Assassins. Now, Deku, he's not really sure what to do. He is just lying in his bed, thinking. They're supposed to go to this, place in 10 months. But Toru, she wants to go to UA. Toga, on the other hand, she seems to be going somewhere different. He can tell. She does get scared sometimes, but that's just human instinct. He knows about that. He's been trying to study it more. Human instinct is always unpredictable, always unsettling at the base level. So, what will she do? She killed with some remorse last time. But that's gonna be harder to do. Depending on her outcome then, I guess that will decide what to do with her. Toru, on the other hand, she might be able to get UA. If she can get us in there, then we'll have access to some things they know. Inner knowledge. Now, Deku would eventually fall asleep. And wake up to something he hadn't smelled in a long time. He can smell pancakes, bacon, and he thinks eggs. Oh no, that is usually not a good sign. Now, Deku, he would get up and get dressed, walking out of his room. These two sitting at a table as Mummy is cooking. They would be staring at him. He doesn't really wear his bandages right now, so he's just the Invisible Man. Anyways, he would be setting plates down, along with actually getting them ready, as he's making his own food right now. Toru and Toga are eating. They seem to be a bit happy, other than what happened yesterday. So, they seem to be at least a little bit more comfortable. That's not going to last very long. Deku would take his seat, and begin to eat the plate that was set out for him. As they are talking, asking Deku exactly what Mummy has planned for them. Deku just throwing a glance at them before biting into a piece of bacon and chewing on it for a minute. As Mummy would say that Deku does his own special training. In fact, he usually lets him do his own thing. But for right now, they're going to have to go to a bit of an extreme. Midoriya is somewhat choking on his bacon. Hearing that word, Mummy doesn't use it a lot. These two are clearly worried about that. Since, Deku seemed extreme already. If Mummy's using that word, and he's getting freaked out by it, clearly they should too. Now, eventually, everyone will get done eating, along with Mummy explaining what they're going to be doing. He is going to be teaching them how to use various firearms and knives. But before he does so, he wants them to be physically capable of doing what he does. As he would just tell them to meet him on the roof in 5 minutes, along with handing over some duct tape. These two confused. Deku explaining that they need to tape down their clothes so that nothing gets caught. The area around your ankles and around your arms, along with around your knees and the back of your leg. Basically, tape down your clothing. These two somewhat listening and getting things ready. They would get to the rooftop as Mummy instructs him to go over this jump. Basically, he'll be leading the way, and if they can follow, to follow him. Now, with that, Mummy, he would start running, going over smaller jumps and smaller gaps. The two following him along with Deku, basically just running past him, blasting through the course he's trying to set for them. And these two would watch as Deku, he's going over large gaps, and actually usually just doing what he would usually do. Being able to go through a jump, and whenever they think he doesn't make it, and get closer to the rooftop that he jumped from, watch that he's actually scaling through a fire escape, running through and actually doing good cardio, and, well, leg workouts. Clearly the way he's moving is different whenever he's doing this, so it has to do or have some reason behind it. As Deku would keep going, eventually coming to a stop, where he has to jump and actually swing through poles, or at least do something that looks unorthodox. Basically Assassin's Creed style of training, with parkour, into the mix. As eventually an hour to 2 hours would pass, and Deku, he is somewhat just lying on a rooftop, tired. And, well, this is whenever Mr. Hakakure, or, well, I'm gonna have to figure out a good name for him. Now, Deku would get back up, as he turns around, seeing that these two, they are not behind him. So where are they? As Thomas would state that they are going to be here in a minute. He told them to meet him on this rooftop. And if they can't do it, then he will need to find them. Now, eventually these two would show up, after a couple minutes of waiting. Toru is exhausted and Toga, she is too. This is a lot of training, just for one single day. Along with that, they feel like they are going to puke. Deku basically telling them that they are going to be doing this every single day, so to not worry about it. In fact, this is only one portion of their training. The two being confused, as they would begin to go over more and more and more. The next day, they would be focusing on a different muscle group. They focus on arms today, as they walk into another room, using a weight bench and other forms of training, along with the classic sit-ups and push-ups, and plenty of juice. Yeah, I just really wanted to make that joke, but it is actually very useful. Now, with that being said, they would continue various types of training and workouts, along with doing calisthenics, and on the 7th day, these two finding it to be a bit more extreme. Watching as Thomas Elliot, Invisible Man as we'll call him, or just Thomas, he basically has Deku hold out his arms. The two a bit confused, as the Invisible Man would just get a metal pole, or at least a stick, and begin slapping Deku's arms. The two watching as Deku doesn't flinch, and he just keeps going. Along with that, these two would be doing this training, finding it to be very hard, since the, well, intimidation and pain you get from having your hands hit like that, it seems to be very, very scary, or at least intimidating at first. And the two would eventually be pitted against one another, as they watch Deku and Thomas begin to fight one day. The two have their hands wrapped, and they're just moving around the room, as Thomas would rush forward and uppercut Deku, the two actually getting into a fight. the two watching as eventually the fight would end with Thomas basically beating Deku and taking him down. Now, they would continue this training, along with Deku somewhat stepping up his own. Thomas has always beat him. He's the only man he thinks that can ever do so. So, this means that, clearly, he's not doing enough. The two somewhat seeing Deku, after he does one form of training, skip to another one, doing 2 in one day, which seems to be a bit insane. Along with him doing something they find to be unorthodox. In the middle of an alley close by their house, they see Deku do one thing, or at least pay attention to him do so. Sometimes whenever he sneaks out, they follow him and watch him. He still does do some vigilante stuff, but this is just him training. He uses his jump kit to boost upwards, back and forth into the walls. And actually upwards. Basically, he's trying to slam his body into the walls to help build a bit of tolerance to that type of pain. And being hit around like that. Now, Deku, he knows this is unorthodox, but it at least does help build pain tolerance in other parts of his body. Not just his arms and legs. Along with that, from him hitting into the ground and smashing into it, a lot of times it helps his legs. They're not used to falling from such high heights, but they're beginning to do so. Deku basically walking away from this, one day. The two actually being surprised. Now, this type of training would go on for roughly about 5 to 7 months. Deku stepping up more and more. Eventually to the point where he does most of this training in one day. And is completely exhausted afterwards. Mummy actually finding that Deku's cracked or at least pushed his body a bit too much. The doctor coming in and seeing exactly what he's done. He finds a lot of healed micro cracks in Deku's bones, especially around his torso and his body. So clearly the boy has been doing something outside of Thomas's training. Now, Deku, he would have to come clean. He's been secretly training. So, along with that, these two, Toga and Toru, they've gotten used to it. They can now do this training at somewhat of a light level. Actually trying to catch up with Deku. So, things are a bit more complicated. In doing so, they have also been a bit more intrigued with hacking. Somewhat doing what Thomas shows them. Toru can at least go through around a city block within 5 minutes. Toga, she's becoming a better weapons expert though. Now, things are still complicated and hard on them, but they are catching up. The doctor basically telling Deku to stop this training for a bit of time, and to increase it by at least half, so go down a bit. Basically instructing Deku to do these 3 types of muscle groups in one single day, explaining more and more about it, saying that he can do cardio, his arms, and parkour. Basically, train every single piece of your body at one time, along with actually instructing him that if he does want to get faster and catch up to the assassins, like what he's seen, perform more calisthenics and do weight training. Deku listening to the doctor, as he takes a day off, and at least talks with Mummy. The time has nearly come for them to meet the assassins. So, do you think that they're going to be ready? Mummy instructing them that they should be. The amount of training they've been putting themselves through is a bit more extreme than usual people. along with what you've been saying you've been doing for the past 3 months, yeah, I think you're going to have the most trouble, or possibly even the most competitors. People, they would probably see you and think that, oh, that guy's no big deal until you basically knock out a guy in one punch. People would be aiming for you. So, you may need to tone yourself down a bit whenever you go there. Hold back at least a little bit, or possibly even a lot if you think you need to. If you let people underestimate you, that means that you will have the upper advantage. Do remember that about the human psyche. Now, while Deku's taking the day off, Toga and Toru, they would be doing more Ironbone training, along with actually sparring. Deku watching these two face off with wooden sticks, or at least bow staffs. Toga prefers to use hers in two pieces, since you can basically unscrew them. Toru, however, she likes to use hers as one single piece, so it's a bit easier. But she does at least keep her hands close to each other, so that she's able to swing back and forth both sides at once. Now, Deku would watch these two spar off. Toru actually fighting with Toga. The two actually are somewhat even. Toru has somewhat stopped wearing her makeup for a bit of time, especially when they train. So you can only really see whenever she's really trying hard, since she does still sweat sometimes. It's hard to look at or see, but if you pay attention, you can clearly see it. Now, Deku would watch as Toru, she is holding back Toga. The two are actually fighting, doing something Toga didn't expect. Whenever she lets go of her bow staff with her left hand, Toga pushing forward and moving past her, as Toru smacks her in the back of the neck. Toga hitting the ground, and being out for a minute. The two usually have matches that end in different ways, but at least they are trying harder and harder. So, things will be different from now on. Eventually, Deku would have listened to the doctor, doing this small training for a bit of time, finding it to be a bit easier, but actually a bit more, well, time consuming. He does do it for a certain amount of time a day, at least 3 hours. So, along with weight training, he finds it to be harder. It seems like his body does have certain limits that he doesn't know about. If he tries to push himself to an extreme, then he usually just ends up breaking himself. If he pushes himself to a semi-extreme or a different one that his body isn't used to, then that means that he just needs to do better. Now, with that being said, the rest of time would pass, and Deku and them would be heading there, and packing up their gear. Deku, he is a bit nervous actually. If they do pass and he sees his mom again, then exactly how is he going to talk to her or explain things to her? Hi, Mom. How are you doing? How you been? Last time I saw you, we were in an explosion, you broke your back, and your baby's become a cold-hearted killer since then. Along with the incident whenever I was. As the door would open to Deku's room. Deku turning around and somewhat getting ready with a knife. Thomas stating that he doesn't need to do that. Now, do remember, you need to be ready. No one knows you're the architect here, so you will not need your mask. Just carry your phone. If people know you're you, the target on your back will go from as big as it already is to everyone in the city wants your ass. You will be the most wanted man in town. especially since people are trying to cover you up already. Deku knowing about his little super fans. Toru isn't the only one. A lot of times people do their own little thing. Sometimes they dress up as what they believe he looks like, and go out. Eventually, the agency had to take on some of these false cases, finding them to be no lead at all, basically posing as cops and being annoyed. Along with the information that the architect is a vigilante being scrubbed a lot of the time. So, this is new. If Deku doesn't go out as himself, he's gonna have to go out as Izuku Midoriya. So, this will be a bit more complicated. Now, Deku, he would leave, with Toru and Toga. He has knives in his boots, and at least brass knuckles on him. And what he thinks would be a good addition to his tech. Those nanites around that piece of metal, he's taken and at least put into his watch, in case he needs to use them. So, they're a bit more of a piece he needs. He's been messing around with them, finding them to be very interesting. He'll have to make more one day, whenever he finds out how to make them. Now, they would arrive at this building, as they would be searched for weapons, or at least firearms. Deku pulling out his blades, his brass knuckles, more of his weapons, and, well, just holding up his watch. The guy is somewhat looking at Deku confused. A watch? That's it? That's one of your weapons? Deku's somewhat just smirking, saying that it's one of his deadliest, in fact. Now, the guy, he wouldn't really care. He would just open up the door, telling them to just head inside. There are a lot more people waiting. Now, Deku and them would all walk inside. They are a bit more confused. Toru, she's wearing makeup for this, and one of her wigs. So things will be a bit more complicated. Along with seeing a bit of banners and a ring. Clearly this used to be part of an underground fight club. So, what is it now? What is going on? Now, this is whenever someone would walk up to the stand, wearing a bit of a black robe. And they would begin to talk, everyone looking up to hear their voice, saying that they are here. They are the Brotherhood of Assassins. Now, all of you have been searched for weapons. You have them. So, if that's the case, we would like you all to separate into groups. Everyone get up against the walls, and pick your own targets. You two will fight in the ring. This will be a lengthy process. So, we have all the time in the world. Tonight. And possibly even tomorrow morning. We don't expect a lot of you to survive. Now, there are roughly 500 of you, I believe. I'm aware that this place is a bit too big, or that number's a bit too high. So, everyone understand. You will all kill each other. Only, let's see, 5. Yeah, I do believe that's a good number. Only 5 of you must remain. That will be a good choice, or at least 1% of you. Getting us the best of the best here. So, I do hope you all have a fun time. And do understand, If any of you have a firearm on you, anyone, then you will be swiftly executed and your opponent will be deemed the winner, even if they are dead. Your body will be dragged away and you will disappear, no one knowing what happened to you. So, does everyone agree to those terms? As everyone was looking around, quiet. Deku looking to his left, seeing Toga. To his right, Toru. And he just starts looking around more. He is at least wearing his hoodie, a jacket underneath this one. And no one really seems to stare at him. People will look at his face, but they don't care. Thinking, why is this kid here? A lot of people are thinking that he probably has a strength quirk, since looking at him he's a bit more muscular. And, well, things are tricky. So, Deku, he would also see more and more people, along with another young girl, probably around his age. He's not too sure. She has black hair, or at least he thinks so. She's wearing glasses and a mask, so he can't really tell who she is. But you can clearly see that she is having a bit of trouble, or at least is nervous. Deku understanding it, as he decides to do something people would probably freak out about. He walks over. Someone's just staring at him. As he would get directly in front of her, asking her exactly what is she doing here. As she just looks up at him. Deku saying that he knows why he's here, but exactly where are you? Besides, you don't really need a mask. Even if anyone sees your face, most of us will die. So it won't really matter. The girl's somewhat hesitant, as she pulls the mask off her face, saying that it at least made her feel comfortable being here. So, who exactly are you then? That doesn't matter who I am. If I said so, a lot of people would probably be fighting for my head. But exactly who are you? Deku bringing his hands up and pulling off her glasses, looking her directly in the eyes, as he feels a bit of familiarity. Yeah, I'm not sure I pronounced that word. The girl seems familiar. The look on her face seems to be innocent. Clearly, she isn't supposed to be here. She is one of the unlucky few. The information they probably have for her might be interesting though. Now, Deku, he would just bring up the glasses and hand them back to her, as she pulls off her hoodie, showing her complete face. A lot of people just looking at her, as Deku walks away, staring at quite a lot of other people as they begin to take off their own mask, showing their own faces. They clearly heard what Deku said, so no one really cares anymore. Now, Deku, he would be staring at this girl again, thinking, familiarity, not something he ever sees. Getting a good look at this girl, as he sees her face. It's a bit dark, but you can clearly at least tell that she's wearing a bun. This being tricky for Deku, trying to think, as the entire crowd is silenced once again, and matches are beginning, as they just shout that the first competitors must at least step forwards. Deku watching as two people step forward and begin to fight. Now, that is going to be where I leave this part off of, guys. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and have an amazing day. I'll catch you guys in the next part.